TopMedTalk. Ho, ho, ho. So here we are. It's Christmas Day. Happy holidays, everyone. TopMedTalk team coming to the studio to wish anyone who's listening a very, very Merry Christmas. And for those of you who don't celebrate Christmas, a very happy holidays. So we're back here in the studio with the ever-present Nick Margerrison. Nick, thanks for living here over the Christmas period.
That's all right. I'm looking forward to enjoying the Queen's speech a little later on.
What's Queen? Is that Freddie Mercury? Or?
Oh, yeah, of course. People don't know about that tradition in the UK, do they?
Go for it. Which Queen?
Yeah. We have a Queen in this country, and she gives a speech on Christmas Day. Yeah, Queen Elizabeth II.
It's one of the highlights. 3:00 on the BBC. Is that right? About that time, or is it on all channels? Or?
I think you might be right. I think it is 3:00. I'll check in the Radio Times, the TV listings magazine.
And it must be incredibly early there, Desiree. It must be about 5:00 in the morning. We've dragged you out of bed. I don't know if Santa's been yet. Desiree Chappell, our US anchor. Good morning. Merry Christmas.
Good morning. Merry Christmas. I was just kissing Santa underneath the tree.
How do you fit under that tree?
Okay, let's buy the tree.
And as Santa's been, you obviously kissed him. So
yeah, he has, and we're waiting for the kids to wake up this morning.
Oh.
So we know they're going to be so excited.
Do you think they will have gotten everything they put on their list?
I don't know. That list has changed about 1 million times.
Oh.
I hope. They told Santa the other day all they wanted was a belt.
A belt? You mean a belt for your trousers?
Yeah.
You're not going to believe this. That is the only thing. No, there's two things actually. There's one of two things on my Christmas list because my belt broke. So. I don't know. Where is then? Oh, wow, we'll have to compare belts.
Well, I'll just share. I don't know. We have plenty of fun interactive stuff. We try not to do too many toys around here, but
and not too much eggnog last night.
Well, it was soy nog.
Soy nog, which is vegan eggnog. Is that right?
Yes.
Isn't that just
it's the nog minus the egg.
Brandy with soy milk in it? Is it? Is that right? Cognac.
I don't know what it was. It was good. Santa almost missed it this morning, but it's a little rough here. But
you look well on it. So we'll try and get some pictures out of that. And the Christmas tree's looking great, and it's all fantastic.
Well, thanks.
So part 2, reflecting on TopMedTalk's year, absolutely fantastic year, 2018. Hard launched in February. And we're up over the 130,000 downloads against an expectation of 10,000 downloads in around 130 countries. Thank you, everybody, for listening to TopMedTalk. It's been absolutely amazing. Nick has put out a podcast, I think, every single day since we launched, and on some days, very many more than that. Well done, Nick. Round of applause for Nick. Nick, a round of applause.
I had a bit of help.
So we're running through the middle of the year, May, June, July, and August. And in May, I actually kicked off May in Australia. So I was invited to the main Australian meeting, and the highlight for me was I managed to, because I've been bursting with the results of the relief trial. So I chaired one of the monitoring committees for the relief trial, which has been one of our most popular series this year, this large trial from Australia, New Zealand, international trial of fluid management. I was bursting with the results because I knew them and I'd known them for quite a long time. But I managed to grab Paul Miles off the stage with my little Zoom microphone and to get him to tell us the results of the leave trial. So, Nick, can you play that for us?
Yes, let's listen.
So, Paul Miles, first of all, congratulations. This huge amount of work. This is a great trial. Everyone out there's just waiting to hear. What did the results show?
Well, as people might know, our primary endpoint was disability-free survival out to a year after surgery. We were anticipating that a restrictive fluid regimen would reduce complications and lead to a better disability-free survival. That was not the case. There was absolutely no reduction in serious complications, no reduction in hospital length of stay, and no improvement in disability-free survival. More importantly, perhaps, is in actual fact we found some evidence of harm, and in particular, a higher rate of acute kidney injury and surgical site infection in patients who are in the restrictive fluid group.
So if we're thinking about practically what we should do next week, do you have any simple recommendations for people?
Yep, so I remain a firm believer of ERAS principles. One of those, of course, was to have a more zero-balance restrictive approach. I think we just need to reset where that optimal range is, and that is really where we were in the trial in what we called the liberal group, but it was really just based on a traditional care model that's moderately liberal, and the recipe we used in that was that patients got around about 10 mils per kilo at around induction of anaesthesia, around about 8 mils per kilo per hour during the surgery, and down to 1.5 mils per kilo per hour for 24 hours post-operatively.
Brilliant. And one thing, Paul has been so generous. He's spoken to us now, I think, 4 different occasions about the relief trial. And at the end of it, I think Desiree, we finally worked out what the results mean, what they tell us. Think a game changer?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it took a while to kind of work our way through all of it, but I think that fluid restriction hopefully is going to be a thing of the past. And we can maybe get that out of our language.
So please.
Really, but yeah, it was good.
So all the links to all those 4, Nick will put them in the show notes and a link to the papers, etc. So for some reason you haven't caught up with the relief trial and you're really looking for something to do on Christmas Day, there you go. You can have the great relief. Right. So the next thing I'm going to take you to from the relief trial is into another of the conversations with Paul Miles, but now he was talking to us in London. So we had the Royal College of Anaesthetists Anaesthesia 2018 meeting at the British Museum in London. And Desiree, you came over and you anchored that for us. Did you enjoy that?
I did. It was a blast. I wish I could have seen more of the British Museum, but we were busy little bees. Recording lots of wonderful things for TopMedTalk there at the British Museum. But yeah, it was great. And for me, it was the first time I had really been to an international conference and was able to kind of hear from all these great minds and hear what's going on in the UK specifically, which it was a lot of good stuff. I know that you think you have problems, we all do, but there's some really cool things going on over there.
And any particular favorite conversations from that?
Oh, gosh, there are so many. Well, the conversations that we had, I think one of my favorites, honestly, was a debate on direct laryngoscopy.
That was the one that Joff... Was that the one that Joff Lacey anchored?
Joff did, yes. And it's cool to hear different perspectives, and I thought it was fun. It was a unique moment for TopMedTalk.
I agree. So that was Joff Lacey interviewing William Harrop Griffiths and Tim Cook in advance of a debate about video laryngoscopy versus direct laryngoscopy. Nick, play us a clip from that, please.
Let's have a listen.
Anybody can show you papers to prove or disprove any particular point of view that you want.
Getting very close to saying we don't need experts and we should ignore all the evidence. But, keep going.
Well, we can do without some experts, Cook, but there you go. The 2 great advantages of video laryngoscopy that it gives you a good view of the larynx without a direct alignment. But there are also the downsides of video laryngoscopy. You get such a good view of the larynx that you're convinced you can get that tube in, and you will keep going until you get that tube because you can see the larynx. And I can show you papers that says it takes longer to intubate, a greater instance of hypoxia, which then leads to a greater instance of death for people with head injuries. Also, you don't get to see the bits in the corner. You're going round the corner as you're not aligned. You don't get to see the pharynx or the hypopharynx clearly. And all your tube manipulation is in the dark bit that you're not seeing. Right, and I will show you papers during the debate to show that there's a significantly increased instance of pharyngeal damage with video laryngoscopes. I'm not saying they're terrible. I'm saying that we mustn't say they're wonderful and must be universally adopted. We need to take things at a sensible pace.
Lots of great conversations there, but that was a new experiment by the Royal College of Anaesthetists, Anaesthesia 2018. We're looking forward to Anaesthesia 2019, and hopefully we'll be there recording it again. So I'm going to jump us forward to June. Lots of things happened in June, but I want to highlight 2 things. One was we had a knowledge meeting, KN02, WLEDGE, which is one of our oxygen-based meetings, and we basically presented all of the Extreme Everest results at Duke University. So if you want to know all about Extreme Everest and you go into TopMedTalk, go into the search engine, you'll get that whole series and some stuff wrapped around it, which I think very brilliant explanations are. The Sherpa metabolism talk by Andy Murray I listen to it about once a week, and I've almost got it. I've almost got the answer to it. But I'm going to choose a highlight from that, if I may, which is and I think this is one of your faves too, Desiree.
It is.
It's when Mike Grocott opens up and talks about his mum.
Let's have a listen to that.
Delight to be here and to, I guess, do the scene setting for the presentations that follow. And I have to say, so I'm particularly nervous today. The reason being, TopMedTalk are here. We're streaming worldwide. And just before I left, my mum rang up and said, I'm going to be logging into that thing that you sent me an email about. So particular pressure. Hi, Mum. She also said, you've got to change that picture. It's completely fraudulent to have a picture of 10 years ago or more. It's all grey now. Anyway, what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to talk a little bit about oxygen and some of the basic physiology of oxygen, because I think it underpins many of the lectures that will follow today.
I love it. I love it. We can all relate, right? My mom listens.
Fantastic. Well done, Mike. Mike, thank you for all your hard work and contributions to that. So please do listen to more on Extreme Everest. We then pop down to the Duke University Perioperative Medicine Current Controversies meeting, which was in Orlando. And I think, Desiree, you weren't there, but you highlighted a conversation that I had with Stuart Grant. I think you remember the conversation about regional blocks and Stuart with that fantastic lilting Scottish accent. Nick, play us a bit, reminder.
One of the problems with an ultrasound-guided tap block is people become too anterior and they miss the lateral perforator branch. So in your flank, a branch comes off to the muscles, runs another layer of tissue, and that's responsible for the lateral part of the abdominal wall sensation. If you don't go far enough posterior with your tap block, which is easy to do if you're doing it and somebody's lying down, then you'd miss that lateral perforator. The QL, you're going to go further posterior. It's actually the same fascial plane, but where your transverse abdominis muscle stops, your quadratus lumborum muscle begins, and you just go a little bit further posterior.
Well done, Stuart. Stuart's been very generous to us as well, along with lots of other speakers there. So I'm going to jump us into July and probably the highlight of our year, because July is the Evidence-Based Perioperative Medicine Week in London. And Desiree, you were over to anchor that for us again. Lots of fantastic conversations there. Can you remember any in particular, Desiree? We'll come to the highlight in a second. But what roundtable conversations do you remember?
We had some great discussion about quality improvement, I think, during the EBCOM meeting this year. We talked to Rupert Pierce about the EPOC study. We talked to Carol Peden. We were able to have some great discussions about shared decision making and just a lot of quality type conversations with some of the initiatives that are going on there in the UK. So I loved them all. It's hard to pick just one from that meeting.
But there was one fantastic lecture, I think, that topped everything in that. There were some great lectures, but it happened to be the 70th anniversary of the National Health Service. And Professor Sir Bruce Keogh gave a lecture I've genuinely listened to repeatedly. Can you play that for us?
Yes, let's listen.
Can we change? I'd like you to think about our contribution to global medicine in terms of science. Imagine you lived in a country that had postulated the theory of evolution, that had unraveled the double helix, that held the intellectual property for most nucleic acid chemistry, that had developed the chemistry behind the contraceptive pill, that had discovered antibiotics, that had done the first stem cell transplant, the first blood transplant, that had developed the ability to stop and start the heart electively, which was the basis of my previous specialty, or in technology that had invented the clinical thermometer, the intraocular lens, the artificial hip, the laryngeal mask, the ECG, the MRI scanner or the CT scanner. You might think, well, that country's made a reasonable contribution to global medicine. Imagine if that country also had 4 of the top 10 universities in the world, although, to be fair, some are drifting down. But it's good for the purposes of the talk. Imagine also if that country had twice as many Nobel Prize winners for medicine or physiology per capita of population than any other major Western country. Imagine also if, in terms of publications, it had 1% of the world's population, funded 3% of the world's research, produced 6% of the world's medical research papers, and 16% of the highest ranked papers, highest cited papers, you would think that's not a bad country to pursue a medical career in. Imagine also if you thought that country ranked number 2 or 3 on the Global Innovation Index put together by INSEAD and the World Intellectual Property Organization. You'd think that's okay. And then if you thought, well, that country also has 5,000 life science companies employing 235,000 people with a £64 billion turnover, and a pharma industry and medtech industry responsible for 10% of all the country's exports, you might think that's not bad, given that financial services are our biggest export. You think that's not bad. But if you could link all of that to the biggest semi-integrated healthcare system in the world, you could start to conjure up a hypothesis that we could, with a following wind, have the best healthcare system in the world. And I still believe that's possible. I think it's a stone's throw away. There'll be hours of debate about the size of the stone, the type of the stone, the geology of the stone, how big it is, where it is, who's going to throw it, and how far. But the point is, there is a stone. And I think we're in just as good a position, I'll come right back to this at the end, as any other healthcare system to tackle some of the problems.
So, Desiree, the final thing that Bruce brought up, I'm sorry to linger all on Bruce's stuff there, but I think it's quite a Christmas speech type of context in that, was why in these days of genetics, epigenetics, and all the changes that can take place in whether you have an insurance-driven model or a national health service, he puts quite a chilling comment at the end. Can you indulge me, Nick, by just playing that as well?
Yeah, let's have a listen.
Can I just say, at a time that people are going to be asking, is our NHS fit for the future? I would say with the advent of genomics, where you can start to predict at a population level who's likely to suffer from what disease, and at an individual level. We work in a healthcare system where the values that drive it say we pool our resources, whatever those are, whatever Parliament gives us, we pool our resources and we offer the best care we can to every member of the population, irrespective of their ability to pay, their need, whatever their backgrounds, whatever. There's something really fair in that. And so I find myself wondering whether now is the time we should be thinking that with the predictive ability of genomics, we are better equipped for the future than many other healthcare systems. And I invite you to ask whether you want to be in an insurance-based system with that kind of medicine on the horizon. Thank you.
Potentially chilling comments there from Sir Bruce, which I know got us all thinking. Also made us, I think, quite proud of our National Health Service, even though there are very many days when we do quite a lot of complaining about how difficult things are over here. Now, you've spent a lot more time talking to people in the NHS and visiting some of our facilities. Do you have a slightly different, this is a loaded question, different view of our National Health Service than you did maybe 2 or 3 years ago?
I did. I mean, I think that one of the things Bruce says is that, for all the issues that we may have, care is really good. And I saw a lot of that whenever I was over in the UK and talked to a lot of people. You guys deliver really great quality care, and I think in the US we can too.
So we're going to close now by wishing everyone a very, very Merry Christmas. Nick, any closing comments on Christmas Day? Say thank you again for coming in.
Yeah, thank you for listening to us, and a Merry Christmas and a perioperative New Year. How about that?
Desiree, you need to get back to the kiddos and get those presents open. Any last comments for us?
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Take care, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow. Don't have too much fun.